Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation, along with.
CJ Liu from the Fired Up with CJ show.
If you've ever felt stuck, lost faith, or wondered if and when things were going to change, or if you're on the right path, then do we have the show for you. Today, we'll be talking about how things aren't as they appear to be, and that just when you think things aren't working out, they're about to break through the surface. That plus we'll talk about rock hopping, psychic surgery from Deepak, hanging out with Oprah, fat rolls, oh no, curves on the trails, why you don't want to pet the hamster, and what donkeys and public speaking have to do with one another.
Donkeys. And can we talk about puking? Michael told me before the show, please don't puke.
And
What a loving remark.
all right, well, so welcome to the show, CJ. Are you ready to shine?
I am ready to shine. Woohoo!
All right, CJ, what happened this morning?
Okay, so I did two gigantic pieces of energy work where I was investigating. This actually fits with the theme. I was investigating. As we talked about in the last show, I took a part-time job. So now I have a part-time job that I do 2 days a week, and then I have a whole bunch of other new things that I'm building, and the radio show, and just like 20 different things. So, so I realized as I was ramping up to doing this work that a lot of my old habits that I had when I was at Microsoft, when I was working, 60-hour weeks and just killing myself, were starting to pop up again. And so I realized that, in fact, this job that I'm doing is part of my spiritual journey. It's allowing me to, how does one actually apply effort and with other people? Because a lot of my work has been pretty much solo, like a solo proprietor. So how do I work in a group and not lose myself? And what I realized is I did start to lose myself. And so I did two pieces of gigantic energy work on Tuesday and then on Thursday.
Well,
Where,
what did that look like?
well, I was getting really clear about, I was noticing that I started a lot of my language started changing. Like my language was like, I don't have enough time. Oh, I'm too busy. All those words started creeping up. I'm like, whoa, that's not helpful. If you have that mentality, that's not super helpful. And I was snapping at my kids, and I thought, wow, this is not how I want to go into going back into work, because this is not where I want to go. So I started getting a sense of all the beliefs that I started to gather as I started going back to work. And I noticed my body was getting super stressed out. It was kind of like, that kind of fight or flight response was starting to happen. And so I went to someone to talk about it and clear that. I do a lot of energy work, so it was energy psychology, and I just cleared a bunch of, like, they're all knitted in this like crazy way that had to do with my childhood and not having control and working hard as a way of compensating and being really like the perfect person in order to compensate to be in my family unit. So this all kind of came tumbling out on Tuesday and Thursday. And I think my body is just integrating all of it. But it's the thing that the theme of the show is about stuff that's just beneath the surface, right? Because I could see. And for me, the trigger was listening to my language and feeling my body and saying, whoa, I don't want this to be the new normal, but there's something beneath the surface in this. What is it? And this was deep in the surface, right? It was based on my childhood and how I was raised and having a sense of no control. So as a compensating behavior, I thought, well, I'm going to control everything. As I became an adult, I tried to control everything, which is, it just put the context of my whole control freak nature into a bigger frame, where, because my parents were always, as an Asian family, your family is really reigns big in your life in terms of, they tell you what to do, when to do it, all the time. They're like beyond helicopter parenting. And so you have no control. And
We're a multicultural family here.
Yeah.
Where
So
I
you
am
get it,
with
right?
Jessica's parents who are from Taiwan and China. So I get it.
Yeah,
I
and
really get
it's
it.
a way for Asian parents to show love. But the problem is, and it's a way to like, because you don't want the child to have any negative hardship, make mistakes. And so you try to control everything. But as a result of controlling all those things, you also give them no freedom or any control. So that my control freak nature happened as a result of not being able to control my family of origin. And so as I grew into an adult, I try to control the environment around me, if that makes sense. It doesn't make sense, but that's what I did anyway.
Well, what's fascinating to me is so quickly, and when I think of things going on under the surface, and what I've been thinking of lately is how things are actually conspiring in our favor beneath the surface, and we just have to be patient enough for them to come out. In your case, you've actually been doing a lot of work over the years.
Yeah.
And so as soon as you put yourself in an uncomfortable position where you can go back to old habits, everything that's going on below the surface, kind of, this is the tip of the iceberg here, but you've built this gigantic iceberg under the surface. It won't let that stuff stay down there anymore, and it kicks it up to the surface really quickly so you can deal with it.
It throws it up. Which is what happened to me today. What happened to me?
You barf.
During hot yoga. Because I woke up in the morning and I thought I actually get hives. So I literally get a physical reaction where I start getting hives, and I've had hives every single night this week. And I thought, oh, my body is trying to get rid of toxins. Like, even though my mind had toxins, but there's always a body response, whether we recognize it or not. So my body was getting a hive. So that was a really clear signal that I had a lot of toxins in my body. So I went into that yoga class, and I had to sit in during
this morning you took a hot yoga class.
Yeah, at 6 a.m. I took a hot yoga class, and was just sweating. And like, I wasn't able to get near the door where they occasionally open the door and let cool air in. So it was just like being in a hot box. And for whatever reason, he decided to do like all these chaturangas in a row. So like after the first 5 minutes, I was just pouring with sweat. And then at one point I thought, I think I have to do a child's pose. And I thought, I actually have to leave the room. So, and then, all of what was below the surface and the iceberg came out.
Stomach pump.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so you were saying it, so you had a different version of it. What was your version?
So we've been having a lot of cool stuff happening recently. We've talked about the numbers, but the numbers going crazy for the show, right, and doing all sorts of cool stuff, and the show really taking off. And we were looking back at our numbers, and it's just a good representation of what's been going on, and that they were growing all through the spring, although quietly growing, and then they've kind of erupted through the surface and taken off and been on this world. Even though we had that click heard around the world, which we talked about last
right.
week, but the numbers are still doing something really special. And it's just one example of what we're seeing a lot of this week, which is, I'm coming up with terms for it. The law of latency is one term, one way of describing it. I had a beautiful little story I made of a village that needs water, and they have a little stream nearby. And so they decide to build a dam. They do studies, make it an eco dam. They decide to build a dam, and nothing's happening after they build the dam. And there's no water. Right. They want to tear it down, but then there's this one kid who's saying, "No, I can see it. It's there. Be patient. Just wait." And finally, at the last moment before they go to tear this dam down and let the stream go through again, all of a sudden the water has filled in this valley, and there's this magnificent crystal clear reservoir. In fact, it's almost to the edge of the banks, almost even going to go over. What had been happening is the water had been filling in all the nooks and crannies, actually beneath the surface of the land even, before it was saturating, and then filling in the little cracks in between the rocks, and then the bigger cracks between the rocks, before finally you can see it, and it's a giant reservoir. But the growth, 95% of that growth was beneath the surface, and you only saw that top layer, which represented that reservoir, which represents the numbers of our show changing or so many other things that are taking place at the very end. It doesn't mean that the changes aren't taking place.
Right.
Huge changes are, but it's right beneath the surface.
Right. And I think it's about having faith. And it's funny because I was just reading Florence Scovel Shinn. Have you read that book?
No.
Oh my gosh, it's kind of something. I think it's called The Game of Life and How to Do It Well. It is unbelievable, the greatest book ever. And she was saying that about faith, and that, so if you have if you want a job, so you start buying this is what I did. I thought, okay, I'm going to get that job, so I better actually get the appropriate clothes to wear, because I don't have any business clothes. I haven't had business clothes in a bajillion years. So I went and I started buying business clothes because I knew I was going to get the job. So it was one of those things and she had several examples of someone who wanted to come into money, and they were waiting to buy and this is in the 30s. So they wanted to buy a hat, an elaborate hat with a big feather in it. So she said, go and buy the hat and the money will come. You have to have faith that it will come. And in my meditations, I started this thing that based on your recommendation from our last show, which is in the morning now. I wake up and I write little notes to, I basically tune into my spirit guides or whoever's out there, my inner self. I'm not sure who I'm tuning into, but I write down little notes. And my last one was saying, I don't know if I can quote it exactly, but change happens way before we see it. Way before we see it. We plant seeds way, months beforehand before you actually see it.
Jessica was talking about, I think it was her pea pods, her peas that she's planting, where most things you have to plant only a half an inch below the surface. Mm-hmm. And the peas you plant an inch and a half below the surface. Mm-hmm. And how when you take it out of the cup to finally put it in the ground, it has this whole magnificent, elaborate system of roots that's filling the entire cup, even though you only see this tiny little thing above the surface.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, and so I think that has ramifications for people who give up too easily, right? It's a really hard thing. When do you know when to give up? Because it's just not happening, and then you're attaching to the idea of that happening. Or when you have to stay in there and say, no, I have faith. I know that this is a message that I've gotten to do. I really have faith that this is on my path. I'm supposed to do it, and I really don't know how or why. I
think the question just put the answer in it. So go ahead, but then let's come back to
my example. So I actually had my life is going to sound crazy, and it's going to sound a little bit crazy because it sounded crazy to me. So I was interviewing for this part-time job. I just took on an assignment to sell this personality index product, of which I'm going to go get training for in July, and then I'm going to go to this other place to get up to speed on their products in June. I just kicked off I've kicked off over the last couple of weeks a product launch of developing a millennial product and helping millennials get the help that they need in integrating into the corporate world. And I've been working with Duke University and coming up with a program to doing that. And that will then become my Fired Up with CJ show. And then I've been coaching millennials and taking the class that I had from personality from Myers-Briggs and actually launching a program with that. And then I got elected to be president of this board, this holistic health clinic, and they wanted me to be elected as the president of the board. And then another woman I'm meeting on Tuesday to be with her on Tuesday because she would like to have me coach. There's a Providence Health place, and they do coaching. So I'm gonna, I may get a job doing coaching, doing a corporate coaching, which is all the thing I'm trying to go into corporations. Now, I think the beginning of the week, I was like, I don't know what the heck is happening. I really don't understand. And then this job that ended up being part-time is supposed to be a full-time job. And so I was like, I don't know, universe. I am following all the leads that you're giving me. I don't know what the heck. I'm saying yes, I've been told to do. Oh, and then someone asked me to be an executive director of a nonprofit. They said, "Could you want to interview?" And I was like, "No, I can't do all of this." But I've said yes to all these things. And the things I said yes to were intuitive yeses. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to need to do that. I don't know why. and I honestly have no idea how all this stuff is going to fit in. And I was just like, I don't really know how this is going to fit in. And I'm getting stressed out because I can't see the path. I can't see how all these things are going to fit in. And I don't want to actually be pulled in 1,000 different directions. So I don't know.
think you're capable of being pulled in 1,000. You're like me. You're a tinkerer, and you're even more systems oriented than me. So I've actually had the same thing been going on since we started telling people we're going to help people build their show.
Yes.
The interest has been tremendous there, and we've gotten interest to help with other projects. All of these things coming about in a synchronistic way, almost at the same time, and. One of the things that we're saying is we want to say yes. We don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. But what I know about myself and I know about yourself is when push comes to shove, we will find ways to be more efficient and then get rid of that which doesn't serve us.
Right. That's
And
true.
so challenging for you and I, not for everybody out there, but I would challenge that most people are this way if they step back and look at it. That if we challenge ourselves to do more, not do more out of busyness, I just put that in quotes, but do more out of things that serve us. Like you said, you got the intuitive hit.
Right. And I didn't know how it was all going to unfold.
We won't in the moment.
And it didn't make logical sense. It was like, it doesn't make logical sense. I cannot do unless I multiply myself into 3. And that's like taking 2 jobs with each person. I don't think I can do. But you know what? It's weird. I keep on saying, you just have to have faith because you don't really know. And so this Sunday, I thought, they said, well, you didn't get the job that we interviewed you for, but we'd like you to interview you for this other job. And I thought, I can't do that job. Can't do it. And then they want me to work full time. I'm like, I can't do it. And I just said, I only can work 2 days a week. That's all I can do because I have all this other stuff going on. And I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do that. And they're like, okay. And I was like, oh, okay. It worked out. But I worried for about 3 days. 3 days, it was like, oh my gosh, you're going to ask me to do this other job, and what is that job? And that job doesn't sound as interesting, even though the first job, as we talked last week, also wasn't really a perfect fit either.
It's all. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, but it ends up like I don't see the contours yet, and I can't see. They're like jigsaw puzzle pieces, and I'm putting them. I don't even know how to put them together. They just have different pictures on them, and I don't even know how they fit together yet. But I'm just having faith that they do. It's so hard, though. It's really hard to know that logically when you look at it and go, it doesn't make logical sense, but I'm just going to keep on holding out that it does.
We need to get you out of your head.
Yeah, because logically it doesn't make any sense, right?
And it's not supposed to. This life ain't a logical world. We come here, we live, we eat, we breathe, we die. It ain't logical.
Right.
It's not meant to
Absolutely.
be logical.
Yeah.
You answered in the very question earlier, you answered your own question, which is, it feels right, and then this, and this, and this, and this, so how do you know if it's right? It felt right. This is heart versus head. Everything that you're describing is heart versus head. Intellect will give you 1,000 reasons why you don't want to do it.
Right.
And intellect's actually a powerful tool because it got you listing off to them the things you weren't going to do.
Right.
So thank you, head, for playing a role in this game.
Right.
But ultimately, faith is heart. Intuition is heart. The answer is going to come from, how does this feel? And how does this make me feel? And does this feel like it's serving me? I think you have a boomerang personality from all the work you've done. And if you throw something and it is not going in the right direction, it's coming right back. You'll have to duck at that point. But the point being, that which is not going to serve you isn't going to hang around.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, I mean, the one job where I was like, that doesn't work at all. It was like, boom, instantly. Like, no, that doesn't work. But the other stuff, I'm like, I can't believe I'm going to be talking to this person next week about healthcare coaching. I mean, I was just going to have coffee, and she's like, do you want to meet the whole staff? I was like, why would I meet the whole staff? I'm like, I don't know what's happening, but okay, I'm going to meet anyways.
So, if I back up now and go back to the general theme,
Right.
a couple months ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, because I think a couple months ago you had the job interview coming up. Did you see any of this stuff coming?
No. No, I had all I knew I had I so here's what I did. I went and here's a seed that I planted. I said,
Yeah.
"Please, universe, bring me something for my highest good and the highest good of others. I want to be of service. So tell me how I can be of the highest service. I would like work to be engaging, fun, creative, and meaningful. And if it has those four criteria, I don't care what you send me. But as long as it has those four criteria, as well as I'm here to serve you, then just bring it on." And then I would meditate every day, and then people would ask me for lunch, and then we'd have lunch, and then like a job offer would come along, and like another I all I was doing is eating lunch. I didn't do anything, and then someone would say, "You should go to so and so," and I was like, "Feel, yeah, okay, I will." And then I would go to so and so, and it would, and that thing ended up being a job offer, but it wasn't like the traditional like, "Here's what I want. I want a job that pays this amount of money." I mean, I know because I've worked with career coaching people to do this, so I understand the traditional method, but I figured I just don't want to do it that way. And it worked. I mean, it's a completely different method, but
And it was all coming up under the surface without you even knowing it, and you hung in there. You
I
didn't
did.
suddenly go and grab the job that you didn't want.
right.
So, or say to
Well, I
this
did
one,
get the job offer, so
yeah,
that's another way of putting it.
which is important. It's about the energy you're putting out. But you could have, when they come back, you could have said, "Oh, I'll take it. Whatever it is, I'll take it just as it is. Just give it
Right.
to me."
Right. Right.
So, but instead you're like, "No." And I think that is so important for the word that just came to mind was discernment. And I think it's discernment from the heart rather than the head, because I'm thinking about my own situation, and now I've got all these opportunities coming
Right.
in. And one of them actually seems really challenging to me. And so I'm actually stepping back and I'm going, okay, there's a sense of fear, trepidation in there. Is that a heart fear or is that a head fear? Because if it's a heart fear, maybe it's not in alignment. If it's a head fear, maybe you actually need to go through with it.
Oh, you have to go through with it?
Yes. Meaning the head is not going to is not always going to steer me in the right direction. And oftentimes the fears of the mind are the things that you need to go through and to step out to the other side.
Oh,
So
interesting. So what does going through it mean, and what does a fear of the heart look like for you?
fear of the heart might be that it just doesn't resonate.
Oh, okay, it's like I can't do it anymore. Like I feel like I should, but I just can't. Is
Exactly.
that okay, got it. And then
Exactly.
so the fear of the mind, like what's the fear of the mind and how do you go through it?
It starts giving me the list of why this might not work out, this scenario can happen, that scenario can happen. All of these future things that haven't at all taken place yet, but maybe they will. And so
Right.
how am I going to deal with that if this happens, if that happens, if the other thing happens? So, did I talk last week about David Nihil?
No.
Nihil.
No, maybe tell me again.
Also known as AKA Irish Dave.
No, I don't think so.
Irish Dave is cool.
Yeah.
And Irish Dave, he was scared to death of public speaking. I'm just scared to death. He did undergrad. He had to give a speech at his last class as an undergrad, and public speech. So he knocked back a couple Coronas beforehand to try to do it, and completely tanked the talk.
Yeah. Aw.
Completely ruined his GPA from that one class.
Oh no.
Grad school, same school, did great, needed like one or two more courses left to graduate. Well, I've already taken this other class that I tanked last time around, but I've got it dialed. I'll just take the class again for an easy grade, for an easy good grade.
Oh my gosh.
Public talk right at the very end. Didn't drink this time. Tanked it as well.
Oh man.
And destroyed his GPA as a graduate school student. So, and then since then, business presentations completely shaky and freaked out.
yeah.
Always, always, always. And so he gave himself the craziest of experiments. David's an amazing guy, and he said, this is a head thing. This just is my words, not his. But I have to get through this fear. I have to find my way through this fear. And so he didn't tell any friends or family this challenge, and he made a mock web page and made this whole fake persona for himself because it's from Ireland. So he got known as Irish Dave. So he went with it, made an Irish Dave website, and he became a stand-up comedian
Whoa.
with a whole backstory. In fact, got paid to do his first gig because he had this whole backstory of being from Ireland and had been doing it for years there, which he hadn't.
Right. So he had a fake website with fake information in it?
Yes. And he got, by the end of his year experiment, he was freaked out. He said he was terrified the whole time. He just learned to wear darker colored clothing so they couldn't see his sweat.
Right.
And by the end of the year, he was invited to do a TED Talk. He came in second in the nation for The Moth.
Wow.
For storytelling. It filled halls and gave talks. It was something he had to go through. So the fear wasn't telling him, stay away from this. This isn't good for you. It was actually an indication that there's something really positive and beautiful on the other side.
I see. I get it. Okay, I get it. Because sometimes, like, I'll get an intuitive hit. I need to do that. So, a couple years back, I thought I'm going to become the neighborhood president. Not that I knew anything about the neighborhood before.
Politics? I don't need to know about politics.
Yeah, no, and you know why? Because I thought maybe I'll actually go into local politics and see what that's all about. And someone said, well, if you want to do that, then you have to actually see if you really want, take a lightweight position in like doing a neighborhood thing and see if you like that. And so I took the job, and I remember the minute I got elected to be president of our neighborhood, and when that happened, I was so scared. Like every fear popped up, and I thought, oh, this means that I have to do it. Like if all the fears start triggering, like, oh my God, it's almost like you get a fear of your greatness. Do you know what I mean? Like you're fearing that you will be discovered, or you know what I mean? And so I think that's the stuff.
Amy Cuddy, who we'll have on, I've mentioned her before. We've had to reschedule a couple times. Her book Presence, and she gives this amazing TED Talk, and she talks about how she felt like a fraud, and how many of us in our jobs are like, how'd they let me in to do this job?
Right.
Or college, well, they must not look over my transcript that closely because I don't deserve to be here. That's like one of our top fears, is that I'm going to be found out and I don't really belong here.
Right. So. Yeah, so before I forget, I want to understand about donkeys and public speaking. Does that have anything to do with Amy Cuddy?
Well, no, that was David Nihil, and I think we called the interview, if I get this right, how to make people laugh like donkeys.
I love it. I think that's great that he did that. But how did he explain the journey of how he went from terrified, having two kind of traumatic experiences that kind of hurt him, to the point of like creating this fake website, to his very first, like, how did he get over that fear to the point that he was doing his TED Talk?
He said he didn't get over the fear. He put one foot in front of the other.
Oh, and he just kept it moving.
Fear stayed with him the whole time.
Wow.
He goes, in fact, the fear doesn't mean that it's an indication you shouldn't get on stage. It means you're actually engaged in the process. He goes, I only didn't have fear 2 times, and those times were completely flat because I wasn't worried, I wasn't concerned, I wasn't engaged. So we stopped seeing fear as a negative and started looking at it more as a compass, and then put that one foot in front of the other. Now, with comedy, as with anything else, it actually comes down to a formula, and it comes down to practice, and it comes down to deliberate practice, feedback. Something I talked about with Anders Ericsson, the researcher behind Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000-hour rule. Talks about deliberate practice. And what that means is learning from the best. So he went and he interviewed everybody that he could on comedy. Interviewed. Learn as much as you can. And then it meant deliberate practice, which means feedback. So on his biggest shows to his smallest show, I think day number 2 was he gave stand-up comedy with a few other comedians, women and himself, and I think the audience was only 5 people or something. Yeah. And it was called Estrogen with a Side of Balls, and he was the side of balls.
I love it.
And what he did is he videotaped every single one. And so he would watch it afterwards and get feedback, and he could even ask the experts and get feedback. So he kept on getting feedback, and he wasn't afraid to look at himself. And you and I have learned this from being on the show. At first, it's hard to listen to your own voice.
Oh, no, I know. You're hideous. Like, I look at him like, oh, I'm hideous. How did I end up being this hideous person? Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so he kept on getting feedback. And it's interesting, too, and I love, because sometimes, like, the fear of not doing it is, what if I make a mistake? But, of course, you're going to make mistakes. It's not about that. It's about doing it making a mistake, getting feedback and getting right back up and, doing another comedy routine or doing another show or, so I think it's interesting. And I like his frame. What's different about, I'm actually doing the same thing, but I don't have the same frame. His frame is move through the fear, right? Or your frame or both of your frames is move through the fear, which is identify the fear and conquer it. You identify what it is and I conquer it. Like for me, my version of this is how am I going to do all of this stuff? And like, I'm like, oh, well, at least I've identified the fear. And then I'll say, for me to go through it is, oh, I may not, and I may, and I guess I'll find out when I do it. I have to have faith that the universe is sending this for me for a good reason, and I just don't see the full picture yet, and I just have to proceed anyways. But it is kind of moving through the fear that come up whenever you're on your path, because they will come, and pretty strongly, right?
Absolutely. And for myself, I tend to shy away from the word conquer. I tend to take more of that yin approach of being very gentle. I will keep putting that one foot in front of the other. It's funny, I joked before the show about, or at the start of the show, about rock hopping.
Yeah.
And so I've got twin titanium hips. And so my lateral movement hasn't been that great, is maybe a good way to put it, over the last few years as I've started to work into things. Yeah. So I've been going out on the trails a lot with Jessica lately, and I'll hop from rock to rock behind her to try to get that motion going. And we're only going at a walking pace. I mean, just at a crawl.
But it's scary, right? Because you're on rocks. That's where your last near-death experience was. Like, wow.
It is. To hop from one rock to the other when I started doing it is like PTSD moment each rock. And particularly if you get to this creek and the creek is like 1 foot to go across, you just got to reach from one rock to the next. And I'm going, eek.
Right. Wow.
So I just kept doing that and didn't see much progress. And it started to come slowly. I went out on this trail earlier this week, which was one of those rare times when I go out without Jessica. And I admit, I'm actually scared going out by myself. I'm still scared going out by myself. And so I've got an emergency cell phone with me just in case. I'm wearing the backpack that she had me carry, or we've talked about before on the mule I carry for her, not for me. So I'm wearing the backpack with the stuff I would carry for her because I'm afraid to leave it behind. I'm trying to replicate.
Right, the whole experience. Wow.
Out by myself. And the fastest we've gone down this trail is like 20 minutes, 30 seconds, something like that. We time it, me jogging behind her to get from point A to point B. We call it the Orange Highway. It's got an orange blaze on it. It takes you from a road entrance to a Boy Scout camp. Yeah. And I ran that thing at a 16:20.
Whoa! 25%. Wow! How does that make you feel?
It was dumbfounding, and in the moment I knew I was going well, but I didn't know how well I was going, but I just stayed in flow. Don't check this, don't do anything. What was so cool is that it appears to have come out of nowhere. How did I all of a sudden make this gains? Yeah. It was from hopping all those rocks slowly and consolidating the gains under the surface without even knowing it. So when the time was right, boom, they just all came to the surface. And I was scared, certainly. But what was really cool is I had been training my mind from hopping from rock to rock that I was making the conscious process unconscious. So if you trip and stumble, how do you know if you're going to catch yourself? It's a really complicated process. Right. What happens on the trails is if you trip and stumble, you've got to figure out not just how do you catch yourself, but where's that foot going in front of you? Where's it going to land? Where shouldn't it land? And what I was finding, and I noticed it recently without going that fast, is my feet seem to be starting to find the next place to land without me even thinking about it.
Right. So you got it unconsciously knowing what to do without really knowing how. I mean, because you were doing it so slowly. So you're saying your way of getting over fear, and maybe that's a better way of describing what the Irish, what's his name?
Irish Dave
did, right? Because he didn't all of a sudden I'm going to go conquer this fear. I don't know. Maybe he did, but he kind of went and methodically got more data, got more information, got more practice, and forced himself. I don't know if he forced himself, but did he force himself to keep on doing those shows?
He was pretty much scared out of his mind the whole way through, and he just kept doing it.
Wow.
and found he did get better and did improve and could actually knock them dead. Huge halls, like 1,800 people in a room,
Wow.
and did fantastically well. But he did that very slow, methodical, and he talks about, maybe it was the Moth or one of the others, where you don't even know until they suddenly call your name if you're going to be the one called up, if you're going to be called up at all. And so you're just constantly in a state of butterflies, and to
Wow.
just be with the butterflies,
Right.
just
Right.
be with them and be totally okay with that.
Right. Right. Okay, what's surgery from Deepak? Did Deepak do some surgery on you?
So, and Jessica's like, you're going to give away all my stories. Well, what am I going to talk with you about? 'Cause she's getting motivated to be back on air.
Oh,
And this
yay!
is an introvert's. You know, she was speaking to you before the show. She was off to the side of the door, so she
Yeah.
wasn't on Skype with you.
Yeah.
And she's feeling this calling now to get back on the show. So she's had this one
Yay.
puffy foot since she broke her foot, which says something, the day after we got married. Doesn't say good things about the marriage. But we're working on it. And it's been, even though it healed, it's been swollen for many years now. And I've been working on, I've taken up the charge again. And so every morning for 5 or 10 minutes when I wake, I've been massaging her foot to see if that helps, going
Yeah.
up to the calf. And
Right.
we will figure this out.
Right.
And then she woke up from a dream a few days ago, and she goes, I just had surgery from Deepak. and and so in her dream, apparently, and hopefully we'll have her on talking about it better here in the future, but Deepak said, well, I can't do surgery on you because I need the room set up, and I need the anesthetic team, and I need the this and the that. And Jessica looks at him, and he goes, to heck with it. And he does some sort of who knows what.
Psychic
hypnotic
surgery, yeah.
something, yeah, and just lifts up her skin and starts working on her foot, and then puts it back down and says, you're all done. And so we're waiting for the results to come. And I'm
Wow.
convinced her foot is going to get better. And I'll be on the show telling you.
Yeah, well, Jessie has like crazy intuitive kind of types. She goes to she's an astral traveler, I bet. Is she an astral traveler? Yeah, so she's got like
she
all
has the
sorts
cool dreams, yes.
Yeah. Was Oprah there too?
Yeah, Oprah was
In the
either
dream?
there or the next day, and an Oprah dream, her second Oprah dream this week, and she was talking with the podcasting expert, Oprah's podcasting expert.
Ooh, that may be your next thing, Michael.
Well, I've been putting it in my journal for the better part of the last year that we would team up with Oprah in the future.
Right.
And I'm convinced that will happen. In the show's
Right.
trajectory, it makes sense that will
Right.
happen.
Yes. Okay, so she had a dream that she was talking to Oprah's people.
She was talking with her peeps,
Fantastic.
and they were brainstorming together.
Oh, that's great. Okay, fat rolls.
Fat Rose, this is one that Jessica wanted me to pull up to talk about, which is, I'm guessing what she wanted me to talk about is the fact that we do a lot of ab work.
Right.
And sometimes, depending on how you're eating, depending on what the week looks like, you may have more fat rolls than others. But don't worry that the stomach is still getting strong under the surface.
It's true. Absolutely. Like, have you ever lost weight and you're like, I have I actually don't have a 6-pack. I'm pretty strong up here, so I have a 4-pack.
Yeah.
The bottom ones are not there, but I get a little 4-pack. When you lose weight, it's like, whoa! Like, look, there's like little stomach muscles here. That's funny.
And for myself, I've got the top two and the bottom two. The funny thing about the bottom two is I never had in my whole life, pro athlete, majority of my life, I never had a 6-pack. It's coming on its own time, on its own terms. If you have just the bottom two, it actually looks like you got a beer belly because there's muscle there and the muscle sticks out. And so you go to the gym and you're like, it isn't what it looks like. So vain, so complete.
I know, but like it's so hard because you're working, so you're doing all these crunches, and there's this layer of fat, and then until the layer of fat goes, you don't see what's below the surface.
And what's interesting is the last few weeks, she's come up with we have this wacky, pretty fun diet from Anthony William, medical medium,
Right.
who got us started on this. It helped Jessica Keogh. We're still on this diet, very low fat. more fruits and vegetables than you can even imagine eating in a day. And she's realized that if we freeze the fruit, like frozen bananas with frozen strawberries and things, she can make the most decadent ice cream without even needing milk, with no sugar, no milk added. And
What does
and
she add
so,
to do the puree then? Doesn't she? You need to add something.
Vitamix,
What?
just the Vitamix.
Really?
Vitamix.
Is that a liquid Vitamix?
Well, the Vitamix, no, the Vitamix is the blender.
Oh,
We can
really?
actually
Wow.
whip it up into an ice cream, and it gets creamy and smooth. It's pretty amazing
That
what you
is
can do
amazing.
without the milk in it. The only extra that she's added on occasion is a tiny hint, a few drops of vanilla extract. So, and
Wow.
it's just been amazing. And so I'll finish my day's food, and I'm good, and I'm done, and then she'll bring me the ice cream. And I can't say no. And so I've been running like the Dickens the last few weeks, and I'm getting these fat rolls too. And I'm just saying, well, they're fat rolls out of love. They're going to go in the summertime. When it gets hot, I'm going to want to eat less. So she brings me the ice cream, eat it. You don't worry about it. You're getting strong under the surface.
Ah, I see. Got
Strong
it.
and stronger. And so don't worry about what it does, or don't worry about what it doesn't look like now. Keep, as David's doing, keep putting that foot in front of the other.
Right, and just and note that something will change.
Know it,
And
know it, know it. So, and that's a biggie. Just a real brief thing. When we've been going down this road, and we started from zero. We started from below zero with the show financially because we got wiped out in getting her healthy, and that's a common phenomenon.
Right.
And is what it is. No big deal. But there have been steps. Well, it's a big deal.
Right.
But there
It's a
have been
big deal
steps.
for her for the healing part, and then the cost associated
Yeah.
with coming from Hawaii and the doctors and
And not having our house anymore,
Yeah.
and everything. So there have been points at which we're going, what do we do? Where do we go from here? How are we going to make it through? I know a while back, her mother, and she said you could mention this on the air. Her mother's like, well, maybe I'll need to get her mother saying, maybe I need to get a second job.
oh my gosh,
Her mother, and that really did help switch gears for us. But I just kept saying, it's already worked out.
right,
It's just filling in the gaps.
right,
The numbers are already there. The dollars are already there. We don't see it on the surface, but it's already, we've got to have that faith and hang in there. So this goes back to, you asked, if we kind of bring this whole talk full circle, you asked at the beginning, how do I know when things aren't working out if I should be hanging in there?
right,
If it's the head asking you a dozen questions, you might want to get out and run for the hills. If your heart is saying, I just know this is going to work out. I just know this is what I'm supposed to do. I have to do this. My heart is telling me I have to do it. Then you have to hang in there.
You know what I find so fascinating is let's contrast to the couple times that your head has said that you have to hang in there. You know, on the book tour where
That's exactly the
right,
one.
because I think like, wow, when I was knitting back all the different stories you've told me over time, and there are a couple of times where your head was saying, I'm going to push through and do this book tour. And despite every signal from the universe, from a broken down van to, you know, there's like all these different things you just kept on pushing through. And was it your head that was pushing through?
I remember being in the was it a Target parking lot trying to buy a cell phone because I had just had the RV broken into, had all the electronics stolen and stuff, had left the bank because my cards were stolen, had left the bank and turned the RV away from the curb, and the back end swung and hit a tree because it hangs back behind it. So I damaged the RV on the way to the Target. I get to the Target, I find a safe space to pull into, and I cream the VW next to me
Oh, no! Oh, my
in the
God.
RV, pulling into the Target.
Oh, my gosh.
I had to go into the RV. I'm a good boy. I went into
Right.
or go into the Target and had them broadcast for the person whose vehicle it is, so that I could let them know that I heard to
Totally
their automobile.
destroyed your car.
And then and then I go back out into the RV. I think had bought a cell phone, and I bought Jessica, and I lay down in the hall in this little RV. Now, laying down isn't in the hall isn't as simple as it sounds. There's shattered glass everywhere because it had been broken into earlier in the day.
Oh, God.
So I lay down on the broken glass, and Jessica's friend is on the phone with me going, "This is a clear sign from the universe. You need to surrender.
Right.
You just need to give it all up." And so I'm there going, "I surrender! I surrender! I surrender!" Back on the phone, "I'm coming home, baby! I'm coming home!" Get off the phone with her the next morning. The sun is shining. The birds are chirping. And I'm going, "I can do this!" And back on tour I went.
Oh, no. Oh, my God.
So let's see. A couple days later, I'm outside of Seattle. I'm in the Northwest, outside of where they filmed. There's like this enchanted rainforest out there.
Oh, yeah, the Hoh River Forest.
The Hoh River
Olympia
Forest.
yeah.
And I've a National Geographic film crew was coming through one direction on the side of this lumberjack road, so I pulled off to let them through on the other side, of which I was later told, "You never pull off the road," because a logging road there isn't really a shoulder. It
Oh,
looks
wow.
like
Oh,
there.
wow. Wow.
And so
Thank God you didn't hurt
the
yourself.
RV tipped onto two wheels. Everything from inside of it flew out of one side
Oh,
of the
my
RV
God.
to the other side like a blender.
Oh, no.
I get towed out by a guy who goes, "So how much are you going to give me?" I basically got stood up by him.
Wow.
And I get to the person who I was meant to visit in there, who just lays into me. I thought this was a friend, just absolutely lays into me about the eco damage I was doing by taking this book.
Oh, no.
And then this was a baby RV that got 25 miles to the gallon. It got better mileage
Right.
than if I rented a minivan.
Right.
So
Gosh.
and then
That is the worst
another
ever.
thing after another thing after another thing.
But
and
you
then
kept on going.
a broken transmission and you name it, and I just and
Right.
and so Head was afraid, what happens if you stop this? What happens if you don't do this? Will there be blah 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 blah? And Heart was like, no mas, no mas. The day before that fall occurred, I was out with a San Francisco couple who Jessica and I had just met, who were also driving the identical make and model of an RV, except theirs was doing great. This is like considered the eco RV and the
Right.
most reliable RV.
Right.
It's just amazing that it was falling apart. It's the Mercedes of RVs. It's made by Mercedes.
Right.
And they take us on a hike, and this San Francisco couple was very much go-getters.
Mm-hmm.
They were very much triple A personality.
Right.
And we follow them down this trail, which was anything but being mindful and being present. I actually broke a toe on the trail, just fairly unheard
Oh,
of. And
no.
I'm like behind them going, oh, ow, ow, ow.
Oh.
And then we're talking about how, well, maybe if the book tour doesn't look this way, but we're scheming and planning and what we can do, and there's this other way that you can go about things. And I think that's why the universe said, all right, that's it. Tomorrow, I got out the 2x4. You're mine, buddy.
Wow.
You're just
Okay,
not
but here's
listening.
the thing I want to clarify. So in the case that your mind was going, no, you just have to go through it, right? Because your mind was like, I'm just going to go through it. What would you? I know it's impossible because you probably would not do anything different because you wouldn't be who you are. But if you were to today face that same experience, what would you do with the fear? How would you go through that fear that said, keep on going, Michael, keep on going?
I think the bigger fear was not keep on going.
Okay.
The bigger fear was, what will happen if I stop? I've planned this book tour. Our finances, in a sense, depend on the book tour. We put all this money out. We've got all this inventory. We've told all these people. We've promised this. What will happen if I don't do and just be?
Oh, okay. So had you gone into that and said, what would happen? And
Two-
you would have just were being, then you would be going into the real fear.
Yeah,
Ah.
2 days before was when I was crying on the side of this pond. Well, I was on the side of this pond at sunset. It was so beautiful, pulled off the side of the highway. and there are fish jumping out of the pond to catch the flies at sunset, and birds dive bombing as well. And it was just this magnificent scene. And then I don't know if it was my watch alarm went off, probably said I need to get going if we're going to make it back to return the RV in 2 days. And I didn't want to leave that spot, and didn't want to leave, and didn't want to leave. I think I may have shared this before. Was crying as I forced myself to leave, got on the highway and said, this feels so wrong, I need to go back. And instead literally had upwards of 50, maybe 54 miles of coned off Jersey barrier, a highway in the middle of nowhere. You literally couldn't turn around.
Oh, man.
And I felt like I had betrayed myself. I had betrayed my heart.
Right. So your
My
heart knew. Your heart knew at the time. Wow.
And my heart saying, stop.
Right. Please stop. And you're like, I can't. I'm fenced into this traffic jam, and I have to just keep on going further.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, gosh. That's so painful. So that's why you're so anti. When I said, "Oh, you just push through it," you're like, "Oh, no, no, no! You don't push through it."
I pushed through nothing.
That's your life lesson.
So when things get tough with the show, when we take on quote unquote too much, I don't ask how am I going to get this done.
Yeah.
I ask how can I do things more gently and softly right now. What can I do to take better care of myself in this moment? It is a complete switch. Now, ironically or perfectly, the more I take care of myself in the moment, the more energy reserves I have to get through whatever is the situation, the crisis, the otherwise. And I'll get through with even more grace and poise, but I go at it with a complete 180. Instead of going at it from the young, let's conquer, let's do this, let's find our way, let's push through, let's make it happen. Instead, it's going to the, I love myself. I'm going to take care of myself. I know this is hard on you, Michael. I know this is really tough. Let's breathe deep. Let's take our time and let's find our way through. Don't worry about it. Even if it doesn't work out, the sun will still rise tomorrow.
You know, I actually heard your voice in my head when I was like, okay, you just threw up. Yeah, maybe your body is telling you that you need to slow down, take it down. And I came back, or actually I felt this way yesterday too, because I felt super wiped. And I just sent an email to this person that I was going to meet in the afternoon. I'm like, I can't meet. I'm sorry. I just need to have a good afternoons of rest where, you know, I had the show, I have like something else going. It's kind of a fun luncheon. And I'm like, no, I just have to have like rest and recalibration. So I had my inner Michael in my head saying, no, you just have to like cut this work project out and just relax. It's really important.
Discerning.
Yeah. Yeah. So any other closing words before we wrap it up? Any other closing thoughts?
Focus on the fun.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show, and love your support in any way by giving me comments below, or to subscribe to the show or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.